Good morning. Thank you, Sukanya. That was a very insightful talk. In fact, it brought on why is diversity important? And I'm, just as a quick check, how many HR people in this room? Oh, cool. So we have business folks also in. I thought majority were HR. So anyway, we have known for a very, very long time that why diversity is important. So we'll not delve further into it. Quickly introducing myself, my name is Seema Vijay Singh. I have close to 20 years of experience in the human resources function. I joined the workforce in 1998, and that was a time there were not that many women, especially not in executive and management roles. In fact, my first experience of actually facing discrimination was very innocuous. I was in human resources, so was also managing the statutory compliances of the company. And when I met the labor officer, he kept on asking me, "Madam, please call sir." And for the longest time, I could not understand why did he want to meet sir. And then later on, somebody told me that he thought because I was a woman, I was not a person with authority. And it took me a little while to understand that because coming from an army background, never faced that, never recognized discrimination, brought up with no differentiation, it took me a little time to understand that there was some differences. So that is the start of my awareness. And thereafter, this was a long journey in terms of figuring out, okay, how does it work? And in fact, worked with women. Largely, initially, it was about prevention of workplace harassment. Thereafter, started to look at other dimensions of diversity as well. I work for this company called NestAway. I very recently joined them. Now, this company is a company that is trying to disrupt the real estate home rental industry with a tagline saying that homes without discrimination. Of course, they're using technology for it, but the purpose is very, very clear, that the home experiences, living experiences for everyone should be similar, comfortable, safe. When I joined this company in people function, the first thing that one would need to do, because you have to ensure that every employee actually understands the spirit of non-discrimination, and that starts with homes without discrimination. If we have to create those, we have to create workplace without discrimination. So diversity is as critical for us as our business direction. So while I talk about it, I talk about the industry perspective and my own experiences. I will bring in case studies from my own experience. So moving forward, let's talk about the narrative. We talked about why diversity already, right? So talked about why, then people start to talk about what is diversity. And if a lot of HR people who are sitting out here right now, India's or the world to a large extent is over-indexing on women. It's just women, 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 women. We hear a lot of that. But diversity, let's look at a diversity problem statement. What does it say? And this would be all the policies of individuals who are looking at it would actually look at this. It is about equitable treatment, non-discrimination based on age, disability, gender, marriage or civil partnership, pregnancy, maternity, race, ethnic origin, color, nationality, in India, caste, and sexual orientation. But how many of us actually are able to build systems, processes that ensure that this is truly happening on this workplace? And then the more difficult element, because we continue to actually play in why and what, more so is because this is also evolving. Several things that are now in the forefront were not even being talked about. We learn about them again and again. So how do we ensure that we actually become truly inclusive? I do not claim to be somebody who has mastered it. Like I said, I am also a student out here, and we are endeavoring to do certain things. I will share those experiences. Let's talk about if we have diversity initiatives, what does success look like? Anybody from the audience? If you have a diversity initiative, what would success look like? Let's talk about women, because a lot of us are endeavoring efforts that are about women. Percentage of women in the workforce at all different levels, right? Now, this also got defined, right? If I look back at 98, 2000, 2001, 2002, we were looking at broad percentages. What is the total percentage of women? Now, we have started breaking that up and say that how many percentage, what is the percentage of women at mid-management, executive, at the board level? So what has started to happen, we are defining a success and we are trying to meet it. So what will it take us to succeed? And here I will actually bring in my own experiences and talk about those. First, we all have good intentions. We are sitting out here, you've taken out time from your precious work day, managed your schedule, and you're here. So that is reflection of the fact that everybody has good intentions out here. It's getting talked about in the boardroom, the good intentions. Now, unless we convert these good intentions into mechanisms that can be tracked, mechanisms that will work, it will still stay as good intentions. And honestly, if I look at most of the diversity initiatives, we, at the end of the year, track the percentage. And it is, I do not know, it is probably your luck or bad luck that the percentage changes for some reason or the other. Right? Usually the minute 8th of March is arriving, everybody starts running around figuring out what is the percentage of women at all levels in the company. Yes? Yes, I see people laughing. And then, when 8th of March arrives, suddenly there's a huge rush of trying to do something for women. Right? In fact, being a woman myself, every 8th of March, a lot of companies celebrate Women's Day in such a way that I want to crawl under the table and wait for the day to pass. And the reason for that is sometimes there's rangoli competitions. Sometimes, like, I once got a gift of a makeup set, and I was like, 1, you're stereotyping me, and 2, I use a different brand. Right? How many women have felt this way? Okay? So that actually shows you that how our mechanisms are working or not working. Right? Second element is about the fact there's a spectrum of diversity. Okay? We have actually looked at through. There's age, there's ethnicity, there's gender, sexual orientation, and it'll continue to grow. Because once we solve one, it comes to the mainstream, something else will come up. Because this is part of life, this is part of living, there's something or the other, some particular group or the other who will suddenly become a minority. So it's a continuous process. So focus at everybody, at least create a comfortable environment for everybody. But thereafter, when going back to the point of mechanisms, pick up the things that you want to put focus on. And make sure there's dedicated focus. And once you have achieved a certain level, you can move that on to regular tracking and then pick up something else. When we try to go too broad, then we do nothing. Because like every other business agenda, every other goal, this also needs focus. Third, now when I asked this question, when do we think our D&I initiatives are successful? We usually look at the organization percentage and say, yes, we are successful because we have this percentage, that percentage of women. I would ask you or request you to actually look at another indicator when that group, the individuals in that group, feel the success. Just as an example, back to work. In fact, I have a close associate and a friend I've been working for some time now. I think she should be in part of the audience. Trying to bring women who've taken career breaks back to work. And often they land in roles that are subpar. they're not actually in line with their quality of capability. That's not success for them. That's just a placeholder, right? So while we may achieve the percentage of talking about the fact that we've gotten so many women back to work, but do they feel that is success? The reason why this talent group is important because this will help us achieve or bridge our leadership deficit. And then we put them in roles which are suboptimal. That in itself is counterproductive, right? And fourth, track. And track not just the organizational large goals, but actually delayer it and track the right things. That data will tell you those true stories. You can pick up anecdotes to see what success is. But that data will actually define for you whether you as an organization is truly successful and whether individuals in your organizations are truly successful. Like I said, that I will share some of my own experiences. This is some examples, and this is not comprehensive by any stretch of imagination. We had just 20 minutes, so I've just made sure that let's talk about some of the things that I can give you personal examples from. So let's talk about representation of women at, or women as a group, gender women. So there are several back-to-work initiatives. I think that's a very, very good idea. And the reason for that is that the dropout of women from workforce largely is a social issue. I've seen corporates trying to make room for it, but then what starts to happen, there's only as much of difference a corporate can make to immediately to the society, right? Despite all the efforts, flexible work hours, better maternity benefits, a lot of things, women are still dropping out in the first 5 years of their career. Large number of women. We start with 40, 45% in their early careers to coming down to about 10 to 15% in their mid-careers, to less than 9% in executive and less than 6% in board, right? So in that environment, the deficit happens. One, we're not bringing back women, and once they're bringing back women also, we're not giving them the right roles where they can actually have that hockey stick growth. So that is one that we could do. Second is the gender bias that exists where we are doing that stereotyping, whether it's positive or negative. Accommodation also leads to stereotyping. Like 10 years back, when I was applying for work, people automatically assume that I will put my career in secondary because I will get married or have children. Now that is stereotyping. You're taking away the choice from me. That's a choice that is mine. Now actually ensuring that your processes, which is in terms of hiring, your processes in terms of development, your processes in terms of growth, are free of such biases, both at the individual, say, interviewer, manager level, as well as your system level. It is very easy to track, right? Have your interviewers asked such questions? Have you trained your interviewers not to ask these questions? Second, this is something that we are doing right now at NestAway. In fact, I joined them it's very, very recently in January, and I walked into a conversation that the business leaders were holding with an NGO, where we're trying to get the trans community integrated to our regular workforce. And that has been actually, this is the first time that I personally have been involved with the trans community efforts, and it was eye-opening for me, right from the perspective of what are the kind of problems that people face. And it started with this: where have you actually seen transgender community people? Where do you quickly recall? When you say talk about it, where do you recall them to be? Anybody? Traffic signals? Yes? And I used to assume, and I never gave it a thought. Honestly, I did not give it a thought. I used to feel bad about the fact that they had to beg and such, but I never gave it a thought about their jobs, being in HR for such long period of time. And when I worked with this NGO, we realized that these people are actually looking for jobs. And in fact, we do not have avenues to give them jobs. And that's when we said, okay, let's do a drive. And because we don't know what we don't know, we said that we'll run a pilot. So we started with us, this NGO called Periphery that is working with us. They did a drive, and they actually were able to get 6 people because they also had to iterate a lot in what would be successful and such. And secondly, one of the things that I did tell them is that we are a startup. We will ensure that true integration happens. We will invest in training, we will invest in learning, but we cannot take the impact of non-performance. So let's start at the very beginning. And that's when we said that, okay, people who are willing to start their careers in the fresher roles or the capability at the fresher level, we will be willing to work with them. So, and they've got 6 people for us. Incidentally, all 6 of them were not freshers, but they haven't had the opportunity to work. And one particular case was, in fact, pretty heartrending for me. This lady, she's master's in law, graduated in 2004, was not tried to practice law in the court. Even the judges discriminated, had to leave her work, leave home for reasons, and had to live in the community that Sukanya was talking about. For 12 years, she's been trying to work in different ways, but has not found reasons to work. And when she came in, so we hired. It was a great thing, we hired, right? We hired her in a quasi-legal role because we realized that her law capability has to be also built up. And then what I realized, it does not stop there. And I saw her sitting, and I had a laptop and everything. I said, why aren't you sitting with your team? So she got up, and then she looked at me and said, I don't know how to use this. She pointed at the laptop. So I called somebody from my team. I said, can you teach her this? And then I had another meeting outside. And when I was driving back, I noticed she's walking, and from her stance, I could see that she's dejected. I parked my car at the road, and I ran after her. I said, where are you going? She said, no, I'll come again tomorrow. I said, no, come along. And we have a video that is getting done for welcoming new hires. Please be part of that video. Come along. And I just put her in the car, brought her back to office. And then I sat down and called my team member. I said, sit on my desk, I'll come back. I asked the team member, what happened? And he said, she doesn't know anything, but I taught her how to look at that email. So I came back to her and I said, okay, start the computer. It took her a little while to find the start button. Thereafter, single finger typing to figure out how to type the password. She did not know how, and I tried to look for videos to show her how to use laptops, but it was about setting up of laptops. And I realized that that is the challenge. If you have to invest, then you have to invest in very, very real time. It is not going to be about getting these people putting in the job and our job is done. Great thing was that I managed to show her quick hacks, and in 2 hours, she was able to actually learn how to type in Word, open Excel files, and actually put data in there. And that is the capability that she has. But the element of making sure that you understand where the other person is starting is very, very important. Now, this was a little bit of a segue. The reason the segue happened is because be relevant. And I'm sure that there are several HR people who are sitting out there will have similar stories. Now, that relevance is about individualized development programs that need to get created. Secondly, policies which enable ease of assimilation, which is just not the statement in the wall. Understand what do they need. Keep on taking feedback once you've hired people. Thereafter, making sure that you continuously interact with them and see if they are successful. Now talking about age and experience, I have a team member who has decided to join the team at 57 years of age. Recently, we actually had interns who were working along with her. These interns came from high school. All of them were 60. And it was a very different dynamic. Understanding that people can bring in value at all different times. There's this movie called The Intern. It's a very interesting perspective of what kind of value age-based non-discrimination can bring in. And differently abled. It will actually take real effort from our end to ensure that we are a comfortable workplace. Ask them, what do they need? Most of them do not need any kind of relaxation in expectations. They just need a level playing field. And before you start to do all of these things, do not go and hire, unless you have the resources to manage 100, 200, 300 people. Do pilots. Learn from those pilots, then scale it. Our trans program, we're starting with 6 months back, 20, and after that, we will, all India hiring will have a certain percentage that we will drive for. The idea is to make them successful. The idea is to make sure that we are truly inclusive. Moving forward from my own stories, very, very clearly, none of these would actually mean anything till the time we actually have good measures in place. Let me take you through the HR areas and talk about how we can build some of the good metrics on this. In recruitment, diversity profile of your applicants, track them. When you are actually looking at functional capability, what is the fill rate and all that stuff in every functional area, what is the percentage, whatever you define your diversity focus for that year, what is the percentage of applicants, what is the percentage of conversion, if there are no conversions happening, figure out what is the problem around that, go back to the drawing board, whether it is a sourcing problem, whether it's an assessment problem, please track that. Second, percentage of diversity hiring at all levels, organizational levels. If you only have at the junior level, you will not have a capability of understanding the needs of that diversity profile in the organization. Because after a point of time, these systems have to work without support. Third, retention rates of each group. That means, what is the kind of attrition, because that also gives you input in terms of how you're tracking in terms of success of these profiles. Training, there's differentiated training programs like I mentioned in my own experience that needs to get developed. In each training program, what is the coverage? Are people attending? What is the kind of feedback they're giving? And finally, what is the organizational investment in terms of money that is going in terms of these development programs? Because if it is important, you put your money where your mouth is. Third, velocity of growth of people from different diversity groups. Is it different from your average pool? Percentage of diversity candidates in your high potential group. And what is the rating spread? Thereafter, workplace climate. Here, anecdotes help a lot. Ask people, are they comfortable? What more do they need? Enabling policies, redressal, and innovation index from the perspective of how much are you innovating, how many different things that are you doing, which essentially help you become a more inclusive workplace. This can actually be tracked with the number of initiatives as well as the outcome of those initiatives. These are just indicators of what we can do. And thereafter, diversity is a continuum because new areas of diversity will come in. And here again, coming back to the point that Sukanya was making, that it actually always starts with awareness. Make sure that you're communicating. Make sure your leadership is talking about it. Second, educate, because awareness is just about the fact that, okay, you have hired people from the LGBT community into the system. But what does that mean? Are they being sensitive to these people? What role can an employee play? Also share stories and knowledge management, videos, such things would actually help in that. Thereafter, the slide before that we talked about having practices that will enable it. And finally, start to engage employees who become champions for this. And finally, once the employees start to champion it, you start to sponsor such initiatives, support other businesses, other institutions that are supporting this. And each time we identify and discover a new diversity area, this continuum starts. So this is all from my end. Thank you for your time. Thanks.